Alright, hello YouTube, and welcome to another beautiful morning over the Kerbal Space Center. Last episode, we managed to do a successful mission where we headed out to the moon and put ourselves into orbit of it for a little bit. Both to prove that we could do it for the World First Company and organization, and also to get us some science and some research. Which are the same thing, I don't know why I said it twice. So, speaking of research, there's one thing I said in the last episode we wanted to take, and we do want to take it. General construction. This is the one I was thinking of. Gives us basic launch clamps, which we want, and it gives us strut connectors, which we want. These will let us brace our parts together more firmly. These will let us have something solid to mount our aircraft on. It'll also give us... Oh, looks like some of the universal storage parts that we were saying about as well last time. Yes, we get the core, so I'll actually be able to use those now. Right. We also have a lot left over, so we could definitely do some picking and choosing what we'd like to get next. Basic electrics would give us the first solar panel, which would be good. That would allow us to recharge our craft mid-flight without not have to worry about batteries so much. What else have we got? Sorry, miniaturization is first, I think. Miniaturization gives us some small parts to give us an antenna, some relays and things. The exterior, or was it... external vehicle operations. I can't remember exactly. The experiment kit, basically. It's a little science kit you can bring with your Kerbals rather than, say, a parachute or a jetpack. Or you can bring it in the storage. And it will let you do little experiments out in space and get you a bit more science. It's got decoupler, I think a smaller one. Oh no, separator. The separator is a little bit different from the decoupler in that it attaches both sides of itself. I don't 100% know quite what the main reason for doing that is, but might be a thing you want, maybe. I guess if you put it between two components you wanted full access to. Some adapters. Our first docking port, which could be good. That allows us to connect things together, although we don't have the rendezvous autopilot, and I'm no good at doing that manually. Thank you, Steam. Another bit of stuff for universal storage. Yeah, some science kits and universal storage. That could be good. Space exploration. So some antenna, some wheels. Rover wheels. Some ladders. Steam. EVA repair kit that lets us do some minor repairs to broken parts. That would definitely be something we'd want a few of on the colony ship. Some lights that we can deploy. These surface kits, or surface stations, are basically deployable research stations you can set up on another planet and they'll transmit data back to Kerbin as long as there's a relay for them to reach. Something we'll want, but we probably won't be launching on our first moon landing. Also a few bits of stations. I think the ambient light boost is screwing with the previews. It's making them look very bright. Cargo wedge, that's storage for universal storage, ironically enough. And the atmospheric science unit. Could be good again. Those two don't give us anything on their own, but would lead to command modules later on, which is larger crew pods. And more advanced ones at that. Those are things we'll probably want later on. We will actually probably want those, but we're good for now. Specialized control gives us some better RCS ports, but you notice we can't afford it because we need to update the science building, and the science building is an expensive one to upgrade. We can afford the first tier upgrade. We can't afford the second yet. Landing will give us a launch escape tower, which is basically a way of yeeting the control pod on the top of a rocket away from the rest of the rocket exploding on the launch pad, for example, or starting to fall over. It's basically an emergency escape. Larger heat shields. Larger landing legs, a larger launch escape, a bigger parachute, landing gear for plane, and another heat shield. Aviation will give us basic plane parts. Now, you can make use of planes in the campaign, especially if you install something like GAP, which is a contract pack that gives you a load of like commercial flights. And we might even do that later. I might even add that so we could do some aircraft flight if we need money later, but we've got science. But we're probably not going to want that yet. Aerodynamics, likewise, similar things. Aircraft parts, propellers even. Do we get the motor? Yeah, we do actually get the motor for them. So another alternative perhaps for planes. Some of these parts are quite nice, like the nose cone and this particular adapter. Advanced construction gives us fairings. Now these are like customizable shells that you can put things in to keep them aerodynamic, and then they can detach to expose it to the air. We will 100% want those at some point, so we might take that. It's bigger decouplers, flag we can stick on the side, some robotic parts like hinges, pressurized tubes for stations, Various adapters and whatnot. Curved tube. Fairings for universal storage. A bigger universal storage cores. Yeah, another one that could be good. We'll probably end up taking that. Fuel systems. Has one particular interesting part in it, but the majority of it is fuel tanks. And cargo containers of various sizes and shapes. So not useless by any means. But there is one particular part that is more useful than the others, and that is this. The fuel duct. This lets you basically choose which direction you want to pipe fuel and do some clever stuff like asparagus staging. We'll maybe get to that later. That is something we will want, but I don't know if we need it just yet. Propulsion systems is basically small engines for the most part. Yeah, small liquid solid rocket boosters, small liquid fuel engines, useful small fuel tanks. This is kind of useful. Not so much yet because they're better for our unmanned probes, and our unmanned probe technology is not very good. And probably the other one we'll take, heavy rocketry. Gives us access to various larger types of engine, including some very useful ones such as the Poodle. It's a very good high efficiency lightweight space engine for a conventional engine. The Skipper, which is a good upper stage engine. And I believe the Bobcat is pretty good as well. So we'll probably take heavy rocketry. And I think it was going to be, yeah, advanced construction. Both of those give us access to parts we're going to want, and soon. I'm just going to pause the recording very quickly here to just sort something. Oh, pardon. So, one moment. Alright, and we're back. So, what is our next mission? Well, we don't have one particularly at the moment, but do you remember I said that there is another moon in the last episode that we could go visit? I'm thinking we're going to launch and go visit that. We're going to go visit Minmus. And we're going to basically repeat the last mission. We're going to put ourselves in orbit around it and then come back. This should be doable with the same rocket that we've already built, the Luna 3, but we're going to make a couple of small improvements to it. Should make it fly a little better. First of all, we're going to slightly shift up these fins just to give us a little bit of room, because we're going to need that tiny bit of space underneath it. Then, we're going to add some struts, because we actually have them now. Hooray! We can actually finally stabilize the rocket a little bit. So, if we do that, that should brace the lower stage a little bit. Which should just make it a little less wibbly. I will check if we've got some larger fuel tanks yet. No, so we're going to have a little bit of wobble still, probably. I think we also have some different boosters. Yeah, we've got the kickback, which is a larger booster. That will be useful, but I don't think I'm going to worry about refitting it on this one. We'll do the 3.1. Save it. And we're also going to add launch stability assists. We finally got launch tires. These will basically just serve to hold the rocket in place safely on the launch pad until we actually hit the takeoff button. I don't believe we're going to need much else, really. I don't think we've unlocked anything else particularly that we want. We could add an extra flag, I suppose. I like this flag in particular. Out of the base game ones, it's just the one I tend to go with. Yeah, why not? It's neat. Just checking if there's any other components we could upgrade on it. We do have access to universal storage stuff now. Oh, I think we have solar panel, right? No, we didn't take electricity. Okay, that'll probably be the next one we take then. Will be the electrics. So we can get a solar panel up. Again, as I said, we have access to some larger engines. The only thing with something like the Skipper is that they are bigger. I think we can, yeah, we can set them to compact mount those, so we actually can still mount them on our rockets of this size. And they're pretty strong. They're actually quite powerful if you use them on a smaller rocket. But again, for now, this should still be good. I'd like to unlock some bigger fuel tanks when I can, because again, because we've got lots of little ones connected together, they're causing flex, which is not really what we want, ever, if we could avoid it. Unless we're building something deliberately designed to flex. And if we were, we wouldn't be using fuel tanks for it, I can say that much. We'd be using hinges. Right. So I want it to circularize, so we can circularize once we're in orbit. Oh yes, that's the only other thing. Once you put launch clamps on, it will hold your rocket at the altitude it's at. So, kind of look a little silly if it's really high above the launch pad. I would have put it closer if I'd remembered that. But anyway, 3, 2, 1, launch. You also want to be careful to just to make sure you don't clip the launch things on takeoff. Now you notice it is still wibbling, but but it's a lot less bad. A lot more controllable this time. Try and put it on a slightly smoother ascent path. Just very carefully tapping that D key to bring us over. That's probably... I could go steeper than that, but that's probably steep as I want to go. Oh boy, she's wibbling. Sometimes the wibbling can be caused if you've got a lot of torque at one end of a rocket. In this case, I believe it's just like from lots of reaction wheels. In this case, I believe it's just from having quite a powerful set of boosters at the bottom of the rocket specifically. For high thrust to weight value while we're in atmosphere. But yeah, having a really high thrust to weight can sometimes cause problems because it puts too much pressure on the rocket. That's a little like 102, then that should get us through the atmosphere. You notice we're losing a little bit from drag as we go up, although it's not too bad. We're reasonably aerodynamic. Which basically just means pointy for the most part. Pointier you are, the less drag you get, which means the more efficient everything works. And we've got a reasonably good ascent that time, I believe. Yeah, that looks pretty good. About the right altitude. It worked a little better that time. So sometimes rockets that weren't great can do a bit better just by getting a bit of practice piloting them. Yeah, and you'll notice this time we're not even onto our next stage yet. We're still on the previous one, whereas before we actually had to burn into the next stage to get to our orbit, I believe. I think that's right. Wait, we need that open. We don't need that. Oh, I guess Valentine's with us again. I didn't even remember to check. I guess we'll send Jeb out for the next mission. Jeb might be doing the Minmus landing, I think. I believe that's usually enough to get them to level... the next one. Can't believe I'm forgetting the name of it. Level 2. Yes, can't count to 2. What am I? Can't count to 2, but can do rocket science, apparently. What? Okay, and we're burning. There's a quick thought while I'm on it. So, one of the mods we have active is Restock, that reskins the parts, but the LTV-30 is actually a pretty old part at this point. It's like one of the oldest, I want to say, engines in the game, I think. It's had a few different forms throughout the years. As of a lot of the parts, the Mark 1 command pod is also an old one, but did not used to look like this. In fact, there's a little memorial to them, and the fuel tanks as well. This FTL T400 fuel tank. There's actually a little memorial site to them, which we can maybe even go and visit later on. I believe these fins are quite old as well. I think they're some of was it C4, I think, who did the first C8? I think one of the devs used to be a modder who created the airplane parts pack, Yonks pack. Like the first time anyone did them, and that was back before any jet engines. So you're still pootling around on rocket fuel, but yeah, he made a wings pack that had some parts in it that would allow you to fly around the place a bit more. I could also be wrong. These might actually have been in the game in and of themselves, but I want to say they were added at the same time. Okay, we're in a good orbit. So, Minmus, set as target. It might look purple here, but it is not very purple once we get there. Create node. I like to do create node and then execute rather than just create and execute because it lets me just quickly double check that the maneuver looks right. In this case, it's going to get us an encounter, so that looks right. It's not using a ridiculous amount of delta V, using a basically about right amount. So, and I believe we're going to be okay for orbiting as well, because again, you do not need very much at all to orbit Minmus. It's very easy. We might even potentially be able to make a landing with this craft just by sticking some landing legs on it. I'm not even really joking. I think that actually might be an option, and we might try it later. But for now, let's continue on with this particular mission. Well, let's decide if it's facing the right way. Science alert is telling us we're passing over new biomes. It's like, yes, I know. We're saving our science equipment. We're saving it for our objective. Electric charge, we're okay. I've been a little bit worried about it, but I guess with Mancraft, you don't have that gradual tick over that the drones have. Keep calling them drones. AI probes, I suppose. Yeah, probes have. I guess drones is kind of right. space drone. There's the moon. Can't see Minmus at the moment. It is usually fairly visible. It might also be behind Kerbin from where... Yes. No, it's up there. I think it might be behind Kerbin. I think it might be about there. It's burning away. I'm still not entirely sure what this is. I know it's from one of the mods, but I'm actually not sure what that is doing. I don't know whether that's remote tech, maybe? Satellite network one, but not sure. We've got planet shine on, so we're getting some nice visuals. She makes the planets reflect light a bit and glow a little bit, alongside a few other visual improvement mods. But yes, a lot of rocket flight when it's... we had some quite eventful ones early on, but actually a lot of rocket flight once you get going is quite routine. Or at least fairly reliable for the most part. Not that things can't and will not go wrong, because they can, and they will. But, yeah, okay, that maneuver was looking a little dicey there, but I think we're good. So I believe this... It goes, blue line is what we're on, yellow line will be the next, then purple's where we're going to end up once we leave the moon's influence, or Minmus's influence. Periapt's looking at 500,000, that's fine. Put ourselves into a high orbit this time, I guess, then. So there's a little bit of fuel from trying to pull close. Now we'll gain some science, because we can always come back and get the low orbit and the ground stuff later. Don't have to do it all in one flight. And there it is. Big old ball of mint choc chip ice cream. As the Kerbals seem so fond of thinking of it as. Okay, bring us into orbit. You notice, very little fuel needed to orbit. Compared to the moon, it's about, like, a third, I think. Yeah, Minmus's gravity is, as mentioned, very low. And you might also, even from here, be able to see the other reason why it's easy to land on. But if you can't, we'll wait until we get a bit closer. See that section there? The sort of dark green point? Yeah, Minmus has these giant great flats on it. And they're actually flat. They are about smooth. It has literally the best landing spots in the entire solar system. It is so easy to land on this planet. Like low gravity, flat spots, forgiving, low delta V needed. Like, if I was to say to a new player, like, oh, or if a new player was to ask me, like, where should I try and land first? Should I land on the moon? It's like, no, land on Minmus. Aim for the flats, land on Minmus. It's so much easier. Even the non-flat bits are not too bad. Sort of gentle curving hills. As long as you don't get the edge of something, you're fine. So, now that we're out here, science time. So, the materials bay. It's the same as the moon, apparently. It does change when you get further down, I know that much for this one, but the goo feels right at home here. And the video is finished rendering. Yeah, instrument read 0. Again, slightly uninspired science messages sometimes. A little bit sad. Looking at the surface of Minmus reminds you of a favourite childhood dessert. You are tempted to taste the surface. Lick the moon. EVA time. All hatches are... Ah. It's a good thing we didn't try and build this into a lander. We have apparently put that battery in the way of the hatch. So we can't get out. Whoops. Alright. That's fine. We're not going to lose too much science from that. As long as we can bring the rest of this back in one piece. So, turn for a moon time. We're going to be a little bit more careful about this one. We might do this in 2 steps because if we come in from Minmus altitude and try and re-enter straight away, we're going to be going very fast when we hit the atmosphere, and we're going to be hitting that danger limit, probably. So what we might do is maybe put ourselves into Kerbin orbit from our return, and then just drop the last little distance so we can also land in daylight. Because I think we're going to have the fuel to do that. We've still got 1,500. Like I said, we don't even need as much apparently to get out here. I thought it was a bit more to get out, a bit more overall, but about the same. But apparently it's actually less. At least it was this time anyway. Yeah, as you can see, even the lumpier bits, you can see there's these great big... That is actually quite flat. That raised section, as is that one. I've landed on some of those. So yes, it's a very good beginner's landing site, Minmus. The moon is actually quite tricky, I found, but doable, but a little tricky, and it's very easy to pick a landing spot that is not flat. Right. Okay, let's see what it will cost to circularize at Periaps. 634. Easy. Easy, we'll do that. Still good for battery, still got plenty of power left. Let's bring us home. Hopefully you're all getting a little bit of an idea of how spaceships actually move around in space. This is, like, while the orbital paths are a bit more complicated in real life, the physics are a bit different to how Kerbal handles it. Kerbal's pretty close. It does give you a pretty good idea on how they work. There's a reason there's an educational version of this game, after all. Again, it's so pretty looking. Look at that. A wonderful little view of cabin in the background. A bit US looking there, that little lumpy bit on the end, but with an extra bit strapped to the top. But I believe the world is, Kerbal is not necessarily based on Earth. I believe it's quite different shape. Yeah, it definitely is. This has always interested me. This is clearly meant to be some kind of giant crater lake left from long ago. Can't remember if there's any other super notable land masses. The Kerbal Space Center is here on the edge of this bit. It looks a bit US-ish. I think it's meant to be a bit of a Cape Canaveral. There's also the desert launch site and the Woomerang launch site, which we can launch from. I don't know exactly why we would. I think maybe some satellite contracts. We could maybe even try a desert launch site at some point. But yeah, we can actually launch from there if we want. There's also some contracts. Right, let's do a... The other nice thing about the maneuver node, I'm thinking about it, is we make our own maneuver. So drop us out of orbit. Let's try and... a bit further down. Let's try and land us roughly at the Space Center. It's a total guess because the planet's going to rotate a bit by the time we get there, but I'll guess about there. We can actually do execute next node and make them can actually run our own maneuvers, so we don't even have to rely fully on its own. If we just want to do something small or a bit simple, we can still tell it to execute them and it'll still do a pretty good job of doing them. And again, I'm not one for flying a lot of things manually. Planes I can do. Planes I'm actually not a bad pilot at for Kerbal, but rockets not so much. Executing maneuver. Also, initially, something that must have been a lot of fun. Do you remember I mentioned, like, way back in one of the early episodes, that Kerbal was kind of the first game that got me into modding, and also games development, and also that I started in the demo? Fun fact, in those really early versions of the game, including the demo, you didn't have the maneuver node system. You had to just guess which way you were going. You also didn't have the markers on the nav ball, as far as I'm aware. You pretty much had to manually guess your maneuvers to try and get to, like, the moon, for example. It was almost impossible. I think I did it once through sheer luck. And a cheated infinite fuel tank, basically. Also, in my initial modding efforts, one of the main things I managed to do was I tried to make a modded solid rocket booster. The hammer, actually, that we've used in previous episodes. And for reasons that I still don't know the answer to, it turned pink. The skin of it just literally turned pink. I have no idea why that happened. But it was a thing that did happen. Must have been some weird visual thing, or maybe I had a path name like defined wrong for where the texture was, or something like that. I don't know. Yes, now before we did have the problem with that science tank gets hot, so we might put a little bit of a spin on the rocket early to try and avoid that. I think the other reason is because it wobbles, it bleeds off a little bit of speed faster. That might be the other reason it cools down a little bit more. I also don't know entirely why this does work, but again, it does, so So it feels a little cheaty in some ways, but it's like, hey, it got me through re-entry. Yeah, it could be the rocking. It's rocking it about and exposing different parts of the heat at different times. I think we might be okay now. But yes, normally I would not recommend having a big science pod here. Ideally, if you've got a larger crew, you can have a scientist go out and fetch the data out and just bring it to a internal module. That's normally what I'd recommend you do. But we'll need a larger crew for that, because we've only got one at the moment, and the pilots are kind of needed to keep the rockets flying as intended. Looks like we're going to have a nice little desert landing. I'm glad you have a water compartment in this thing, right? Food, not food, air, science. Oh boy. Well, I hope you got some bottled water among those snacks anyway. And we can set those to fairly low. For the sake of not spending forever at high altitude. Deserts, I believe, are quite a good landing spot. They're quite flat. The sand is not particularly any more forgiving. They haven't gone quite that far with the terrain, but I am looking forward to the next game, though, because one of the things we have seen into is a little bit more with the terrain, because there is lava on at least some planets. And I'm like, ooh, okay. That's going to be interesting, and we're going to need to worry a bit more about like heat management, more radiators and things when you're going to planets like that. There's also base construction. Like, not the base construction we're going to do, where it's basically a rocket that is base parts. Actual base construction where you, I believe, could build rockets on another planet and manufacture fuel and things. And I'm like, ooh, that sounds fun. I'm looking forward to seeing how they've done that and also how well it works, hopefully. Hopefully rather well. Coming into land. For this recording, we'll probably finish up after sort of taking stock of what's our results are from this one, and also maybe picking our next research. Although I think it's going to be electronics, because I think we want those solar panels. And slowing down. Okay, 500 looks like about our limit for putting the parachutes any later, and we're going to have a problem. Sending over the hot desert. This sort of parachute setup seems to work well enough, though. Oh, we haven't removed our heat shield this time. No, we're still okay. Hooray. And Heater has returned safely. And I guess next time we're going to be building a Minmus lander for Jeb. That'll be our next one. We might actually need to upgrade the launcher a little bit because, what do you call it? Because we've got to come back from Minmus. But I'll see how much fuel we need to land. Again, we might get away, depending on how much weight there's landing legs at, with just slapping landing legs on that particular rocket. That might do it. 170 science. Yep, so we'll be able to take at least 2 more bits of research. Bounty Hunter's level 2. Excellent. And some new world firsts. So we've made a bit of money as well. We're doing well. We might even want to upgrade the science centre soon. But for now, we're okay. So, we're going to take electrics. We'll have solar panels. Hooray! Our rockets can now recharge on the fly. Which also means we can take that battery off that's blocking the way. I'm quite tempted almost to take militarization. Sorry, I just dropped something. Because that will give us access to the first docking port. But again, we do need... where's the docking autopilot? Is that advanced unmanned tech? Yeah. That's the automatic docking autopilot, and I am very iffy about trying to dock without it. I could give it a try. I know roughly the theory on how you do docking, but I've never tried it myself. Landing might be good for better landing legs. Considering we're going to be doing a Minmus landing, probably. Then again, we're landing at low gravity, so we don't really need the heavyweight ones. Fuel systems could be good. Propulsion will give us some other small engines. We might save it for now. We'll maybe decide what we want when we decide we need something specific. So, hopefully you've all enjoyed yourself this episode, and I'll see you all next time. I will quickly remind you all that I am a games dev as well as a reviewer and let's player, so if you want to help out the channel, absolute best way you could do that, check out the games in the description. There's a couple of trailers there to 2 of the games I've made. They're available on Steam. Should both be available now by the time this video comes out. Although one of them is released in a few days' time, and in at time of recording. So I'll see you guys all next time.